Thank you. My name is Michael Poley. My company is Poley Creative, where I design and produce content strategy for people and companies, nonprofits. The way that works is kind of thought partnership with someone to produce something awesome. You may have seen a project I did recently. I connected with, hold on. I'll point at the right thing in a second, or I'll just lean down and do this. Anyway, I connected with Rebecca Alexander over at Algo, if you guys are familiar with that company. It's like Yelp, but for plus-size people. I'm going to just flip this back on and off. And we produced, I guess I'm stuck here. Okay, now we're going to fade over here. Great. And so I connected with Algo, and we produced some free stock photography of plus-size people. If you are familiar with the world of stock photography, there's not a lot of representation for large people or people of size. And producing this project was an awesome collaboration that we did creatively together. And so far, since working on that project, there was some awesome shout outs in the local paper, but also it's had 14 million views and 41,000 downloads. We've seen the project used by even some VC-funded startups that use it as part of their homepages, which is really inspiring and awesome. So that's a project I'm not going to talk about, but that just gives you an idea of kind of where I'm at. I also produced a Buffy the Vampire Slayer podcast where I make predictions about what should happen next in Buffy. I've never seen the show. It's very silly. Cool. So for this project, this actually started back in March of this year where I tweeted out a code or like a phone number. So you you sent a text, tomb, to a phone number, and then it sent a text adventure to your phone. It's a really simple project, and I did it based on Tomb of Horrors, which is a very early Gary Gygax D&D module. Anyway, it's a kind of a weird project, but that's where it came from. So this is in March of this year. If you've never played Tomb of Horrors, it's kind of like the worst, has like a really unique reputation as a D&D module because it's full of death traps, and it's designed to kill adventurers. So what a great game to adapt. So I'll get into how we do that in a minute, but that's kind of where I'm coming from with this one. And then the tool I use to build it is Twilio Studio, which has a really easy to use interface for people, especially you don't identify as a developer. If you're more of a hobbyist, enthusiast when it comes to technology, this is a great product to use. And I'll get into exactly the 3 drag and drop tools I used in Twilio Studio in a bit. But before we get started, I'm in a weird place delivering this talk because I don't identify as a developer. I'm more of a tech enthusiast. And so in the stages of learning where I am, I should actually be in the second stage here, naively confident, where I feel like I should really explain how this works to you. But somehow I'm in teaching others now, which is fantastic. I hope that when I'm done, you will be in the naively confident section of this. And by the way, this is a super interesting study from '99 about how we have a very hard challenge of self-assessing our own ability to do things, and we tend to believe that we are more amazing than we really are. I can't imagine us all self-assessing on our driving skills, for instance, right, with both a written and a road test. How'd we do? So we're all pretty bad at self-assessment. Some of us are worse, so I'm just calling this out early. So I'm going to talk a little about text adventures, and then a little bit about texting, and then we're going to put them together. So first, what is a text adventure? So text adventures kind of reached their height in the 70s and 80s, kind of a pre-graphics game, kind of interactive stories. They're pretty fun, but they're pretty dated. It can be a real challenging experience to go back and try and play these games if you've ever played them. And I think the biggest challenge with text adventures that I've experienced is something that's kind of like an invisible wall that you hit, where you don't know what to type, or you don't know what object is needed, or what inventory is required to move something forward. And so as a design constraint, it's actually really challenging to think about how to build an SMS text adventure because you want people to go through the game. And so I think even though I would love to create a text adventure with an inventory, for the purposes of an SMS-based one, it's really more of a choose your own adventure because I do want people to finish it and have fun. And this style is much easier to do on a phone as I found. So on the texting side, if you can, I'm sure we've all called support lines and reached one of those press 1 for sales, 2 for support, 3 for warehouse, etc. So the concept of where this comes from is like trying to think about what would be fun to do with an IVR. So IVR is a phrase I only learned for this project, interactive voice response, and those are these phone trees, essentially, where you call a number. And that is what we're going to do for this project. It's just a phone tree that's like a multiple choice adventure. And what's funny is when you look at Zork and like the original game and how that map works, it actually looks quite a bit like a phone tree for, this is a standard IVR for a banking app. This banking app actually looks kind of more complicated than Zork. It's a tough call. So in the adaptation, I'm looking at Tomb of Horrors. So if you're a dungeon master, this is the dungeon master's point of view. You get to see these cool maps that have descriptions of all the interesting stuff going on in the dungeon. So this is the Tomb of Horrors dungeon. And so in adapting it for a text adventure, you kind of have to pull out and see what are these segments and how these things link together. So if you can see at the top, this is where you normally enter the Tomb of Horrors. And these are instant death traps on either side. So if you go this way, you die. You go this way, you die. And if you're all interested in this era of gaming, it's very weird. People used to like do weird stuff like get 50 cattle and have them run through the stuff ahead of them, just whatever they could imagine to solve the problems. So these are all death traps. And as I was going through it, more complicated inventory was required, so I just kind of cut it off pretty early on in this experiment of how this would work. But that's what's going on here. So I've got text for each room, and then an idea of what the sequence would be. So now the Twilio part, and how this kind of comes together. So hidden in this amazing business-focused page is this really fun app to play with called Twilio Studio. And if you've never done it, I'm just going to walk through the login part so we can get to the cool part that might be hidden for people. And it was certainly hidden for me when I was looking for stuff like this. So you need to get a number to do this. And numbers cost, through Twilio, they're $1 a month. So that seems pretty cheap to get a phone number to play around with. This is definitely in that hobbyist enthusiast world. We're going to spend about 20 bucks to do something weird and fun. So you get a phone number. This is not the number for this project. This is just a fun number. And then you need to find the studio, like icon logo. We're going to go through it. And then it delivers you to a canvas. And they call these sequences of like these phone trees flows. So this is the first one. And I'm going to show you now. These are the 3 things I'm going to talk through that are being used here to create this. And I didn't create this API. Again, I'm speaking from a high naive confidence on how this stuff works. So these are the 3 elements I use to make something silly. So there's the trigger. So the trigger is when the incoming text is coming in. And from the trigger, you want to capture trigger.message.body, which is the text. So you could just text and have the game start. But it's more fun and certainly easier conceptually to understand texting a word to get it started if you wanted to have multiple cues. And I thought I was going to do a lot more of these adventures when I did this one. But texting the word tomb, so that's in the message.body. So that comes in incoming. This checks to see what was typed, what was sent. And then, if the right thing is sent, then it sends a text to you and waits for your reply. So if tomb is sent from the trigger, it goes through and then sends you a text, wait for reply. And then in that text, I'm telling you, oh, choose a room 1, 2, or 3, and go to the next one. And then it does that 1,000,000 times. If you die, it sends you back to the beginning. And it's kind of a game, but it's more like choose your own adventure. So there are a couple things that you might get hung up on if you go through something like this. For me, I was getting hung up on when you're adding multiple kind of sequences within that split. And so making sure that you're being clear on where people are going. It's very easy to get lost if you don't label these things properly. So making sure your values are happening. And that's in this transitions field. So that might get you hung up a little bit. Right, so this is what this thing looks like. And you can see how this all could be adapted to make this kind of thing work. There's one other thing you have to do to make this thing go live, and that's you got to go through and add the flow as something that's triggered by the call, and that's just in this phone number screen, and then you just go ahead and add in the studio flow whatever you're called of your adventure that's going to come out to the person that texts you. So, some thoughts about this project. Now it's been several months, and I've had a lot of feedback from people of what to do next with it. And also, like, was this a good idea? Was it worth your time to do? It was kind of a fun experiment. People definitely engaged with it, which was cool. I tweeted this out, and 100 people, or more than 100 people, checked it out, which was very cool. I was a little bit nervous tweeting it out because this does cost some money. So there is a cost associated with it, which is why you won't see a lot of these kind of concepts. So it's 0.0075 cents per text, incoming, outgoing. So the way text work in this world is 160 characters is a text. And if there is a long string of text, then that very quickly becomes multiple text, and then it becomes more expensive. So it definitely, if you're designing an adventure this way, you want every text you send to the user to be very brief, and then your expectation from the user to be brief as well. So that was an interesting thing to think about. So in all, it takes about 200 or so messages, might go back and forth. 25 or so messages per person kind of playing with this game, which is cool. So it's still a little bit more expensive than it needs to be like a functioning game. And like mobile games are definitely not that expensive to operate. So as a game, probably not. As an experiment though, it's super fun. And the fact that people engage with it was awesome. So the tracking side of it is interesting too, because you're collecting a lot of incoming phone numbers. Now, I'm not collecting them to do anything weird, but definitely you're getting all these incoming phone numbers while you're doing it. But the cool things that came out of this is it really inspired me to do more text-based surveys. And when you're doing an implementation or a workshop, having a quick way to get feedback from people as opposed to saying like, hey, would you mind walking over to my computer and typing in some information or sending people an email? The response from emails is pretty low. It's like 6 to 36% for an open rate for an email. And so this is closer to 99% with a text. So the level of engagement is super high, which is pretty awesome. Great. Well, this is the number to text if you want to check this short thing out. I thought I would wait till the end. And then if you have thoughts or feedback, this is a separate number. If you texted this, it just pops into a Slack channel that I set up for this event so I can collect your feedback. If you have any thoughts or questions about this, hit me up. This probably came a little bit short on time, but thank you so much.